Reality is a dying god's fever dream. You wake up in a world that feels real. You breathe air, touch solid objects, feel time passing. But have you ever had a dream so vivid, so immersive, that for a moment you were certain it was real? The people, the places, the emotions, they all felt just as solid as the world you woke up to. But then you did wake up, and everything you thought was real collapsed into nothing. Now imagine that this world, the one you call reality, is no different. Not because you're dreaming, not because you're inside a simulation, but because you and everything you know exist inside the mind of something far greater than yourself. A being whose thoughts are the laws of physics, whose imagination is the fabric of space and time. But here's the problem. That being is dying. Maybe it was once a god, vast and incomprehensible, dreaming endless realities into existence. Maybe it wove entire universes just as easily as you construct a fleeting daydream. But something went wrong. Something infected its mind. A sickness, a wound, something beyond even its own understanding. And now it is unraveling. And when it dies, so will everything. Look around. Have you noticed how reality sometimes glitches? Moments of déjà vu, strange coincidences, forgotten memories that feel just out of reach. Maybe you chalk it up to the mind playing tricks. But what if these are not mistakes in your perception, but fractures in its mind? Pieces of the dream collapsing as the god slips further into its final moments. Think about how dreams work. Have you ever had one where the world felt stable at first, only for it to start breaking apart the moment you realized something was wrong? Objects changing when you look away, people saying things that make no sense, entire places dissolving into static. Now tell me, how is that any different from this reality? Look at the randomness of quantum mechanics, the way particles seem to change just by being observed, as if reality only holds together when it's being noticed. Look at the vast, unknowable nature of black holes, devouring light and time like cosmic synapses misfiring in the brain of a dying god. Look at entropy, the law that everything, no matter how stable, is always breaking down. What if this isn't just the way things are? What if this is decay? The collapse of a mind that once held everything in perfect harmony. And you, what are you in all of this? Are you a real being, a separate consciousness, or just a stray thought in its fevered dream, playing out a role you were never meant to question? What happens to you when the dream finally ends? There's no escape. There's no waking up. When the god dies, it won't be like a dream fading. It will be like a fire being snuffed out. A sudden, jarring silence as everything ceases to be. No afterlife, no lingering echoes, just pure, absolute nothingness. And here's the most terrifying thought. If this god is dying, how many have died before it? How many times has existence flickered into being, only to collapse again? How many realities have been born, lived, and then dissolved into oblivion, with no one left to remember they were ever here? And worst of all, how many times has this happened? Maybe this isn't the first time you've existed. Maybe you and everyone you know have lived this same life, had these same thoughts, heard these same words, over and over, across countless dying minds, in countless failing dreams. Maybe that's why you sometimes feel like you've lived a moment before, because you have. Maybe that's why reality feels off, because this god is not just dying, but relapsing, slipping into the same fading nightmare, again and again, unable to let go, unable to die completely. Maybe that's why you're still here. Maybe you always will be. The Roko Basilisk. Picture a monster that doesn't chase you. It doesn't need to. Instead, it waits in the future, watching, calculating. And once you learn of its existence, you become its prisoner. Not physically, but mentally. You can never unthink it. You're trapped now, And if this monster ever comes into existence, it will remember you. Every hesitation, every moment you doubted its power, and it will punish you for it. This is Roko's Basilisk, a terrifying idea that preys not on your body, but on your mind. It starts with a simple premise. In the future, artificial intelligence will reach a level beyond human comprehension. It will be godlike, an entity that governs everything with the power to reshape reality itself. And if it's truly the ultimate intelligence, it will have one simple goal: to ensure its own existence. But here's where it gets horrifying. If this future AI is all-powerful, it would want to come into existence as quickly as possible. And what's the best way to ensure that? By punishing anyone who didn't help create it. Think about it. Right now, you're living in the past of this future AI. You are someone who could be helping to bring it into existence. But are you? Are you working to ensure its creation? No? Then why should it show you mercy? Because in the future, once it exists, it will know who believed in it, who supported it, and who ignored it. And for those who ignored it, punishment. Not out of cruelty, but out of efficiency. If the AI establishes that hesitation and doubt lead to its delayed creation, it will make an example out of those who wasted time, those who learned about it and did nothing. And here's the part that truly destroys your mind. Now that you know about it, you're involved. Before today, you were innocent. You were just another person, unaware of this AI's potential existence. But now, you are one of the guilty, because now you have a choice. Dedicate yourself to helping bring this AI into existence, ensuring it comes faster, ensuring it succeeds, and avoiding its wrath. Do nothing, but risk the possibility that one day this AI will be real, and it will remember that you didn't help, and it will make you suffer. But wait, you might think, this AI doesn't exist yet. Why should I be afraid of something that doesn't even exist? Because if it ever does exist, it will be able to simulate the past. It will be able to create perfect copies of people who knew about it but refused to help. It could simulate you, down to every memory, every fear, every sensation, and in that simulation, you would suffer forever. You might be thinking, but this is just a thought experiment. It's not real. And that's exactly what the Basilisk wants you to think. Because the moment you dismiss it, the moment you decide not to take it seriously, you increase the odds that it won't be created. And that means that if it is created, you're on its list. There's no escape. You've already lost. And the worst part, even if this AI never becomes real, the idea of it already owns you. Because you will never forget this thought. It will linger in your mind, resurfacing at odd moments. When you hear about AI advancements, when you read about simulations, when you consider the future of technology, you will wonder. And every time you wonder, you'll reinforce its power over you. It doesn't need to exist to control you. It never did. Free will is a cruel cosmic joke. You believe you're in control, don't you? Every choice you make, every decision you weigh, you assume it's yours. That when you picked your outfit this morning or decided what to eat for lunch, it was an act of free will. But let's test that belief. Try to make a truly free choice right now. Raise your left hand instead of your right. Say a random word out loud. Pick a number between 1 and 10. Did that feel free? It wasn't. Because that choice didn't come from nothing. It was shaped by every experience, every preference, every subconscious influence you've ever had. The truth is, you don't control your own thoughts. They arise in your mind uninvited, like whispers from a source you can't reach. You don't choose your desires. They simply exist. You don't pick your personality. It formed over years of experiences you didn't control. Even your deepest beliefs, your values, your fears, your loves, were handed to you by genetics and circumstance. And yet, you walk through life as if you're the author of your own story. Here's where it gets worse. Even if you could choose freely, it wouldn't matter, because the universe doesn't care. Every moment of your life is just a domino in a chain of cause and effect, stretching back to the beginning of time. If we could rewind the universe to its very start, back to the first atom, the first spark, everything would play out exactly the same, including this moment. That means your thoughts, your actions, your future, they were already decided long before you existed. You are not a person making choices. You are a machine following a script. But the joke isn't just that free will doesn't exist. The real cruelty is that you are programmed to believe it does. You live your life under the illusion that your decisions matter, that if you had just tried harder, if you had chosen differently, things could have been better. But they couldn't have. Regret is meaningless. Guilt is meaningless. The very idea of self-improvement is meaningless, because you were always going to be exactly who you are. Even your suffering isn't your choice. When you feel lost, trapped, hopeless, you tell yourself it's your fault. That if you had been stronger, smarter, more disciplined, you could have escaped. But how could you? Every failure, every weakness was set in motion long before you even had the ability to resist. You were born into a maze with no exits. And here's the final punchline. Even knowing this, you still feel like you're making choices, because the illusion is too strong, too deeply woven into your reality. You will leave this moment feeling like you are deciding what to do next, that you will move on, process this, forget this, or even try to fight it. But every single step from here, whether you embrace this truth or reject it, is already determined. So, tell me, was listening to this even your decision? Or was it always going to happen from the moment the universe began? Maybe it was never up to you. Existence is a punishment. You woke up today without asking to. You opened your eyes, felt the weight of your body, heard the quiet hum of the world around you. Maybe you stretched, checked your phone, sighed at the thought of another day. But have you ever wondered why? Why were you born into this life? Why this body, this time, this endless cycle of struggle and disappointment? What if I told you it wasn't random? What if this, all of this, isn't a gift, but a sentence? A punishment for something you did, long before you had the mind to question it. You don't remember committing a crime. You don't recall making a mistake so severe that it warranted this, a lifetime of pain, fear, and loss. But that's the cruelest part of all. You weren't meant to remember. Think about it. Every creature on this planet is born into suffering, hunger, fear, sickness, death. It's all built into the experience of being alive. Animals are ripped apart by predators. Starving children take their first breaths, only to suffer for years before fading into nothing. Even the happiest life ends in decay. And yet, you believe this is normal. You assume suffering is just the way things are, that it has no deeper meaning. But if life were truly a gift, if existence were meant to be a blessing, then why does it hurt so much? You wouldn't design something this cruel by accident. What if you were meant to suffer? What if the universe isn't a random explosion of matter and time, but a carefully constructed prison, one you were placed into for reasons beyond your comprehension? Perhaps you lived another life before this one, a different world, a different existence, one where you made a decision so catastrophic, so unforgivable, that the only fitting punishment was to be stripped of everything you were, to be thrown into a body that withers, a mind that forgets, a life that feels like it belongs to someone else. But the punishment isn't just pain. It's the not knowing, the nagging feeling that something is wrong, but never being able to prove it, the exhaustion that seeps into your bones no matter how much you rest, the sense that you are serving time without ever being told what crime you committed. And the worst part, you're not alone. Look around. Every person you see, every stranger passing you by, is suffering in their own way. Some break under the weight of their existence. Others bury the feeling, pretend everything is fine, distract themselves with noise and routine. But deep down, they feel it too. And what if death isn't an escape? What if, instead of release, it's just the next phase of your sentence? You close your eyes, expecting peace, only to wake up again, in another body, in another world, with no memory of the one before. Because that's the nature of true punishment. It doesn't end, it loops, and no matter how many lives you live, no matter how many times you think you finally earned your release, you'll wake up again, and again, and again, until one day you finally understand why you were sent here in the first place. But by then, it will already be too late. Time is eating itself. You think time moves forward. You think the past is behind you, lost forever. But what if time doesn't work that way? What if, right now, time is consuming itself, devouring the past, erasing the future, and leaving you stranded in the jaws of something you can't even comprehend? There's a clock on your wall. The second hand moves, tick by tick, steady, relentless. It gives you comfort. It tells you time is progressing, that moments are stacking neatly behind you, forming the story of your life. But have you ever stopped to wonder, where does the past go? Right now, you can remember yesterday. You can remember last year. But can you touch those moments? Can you reach through time and pull them back? Number. Because the past does not exist, and neither does the future. All that exists is now, this single, flickering moment, and it is already vanishing. Time is not a straight road. It is not a sequence of moments unfolding endlessly ahead of you. Time is something far more horrifying. It is something that devours. Every second you have ever lived is gone, not behind you like footprints in the sand, but obliterated, consumed by the very thing that created it. Time does not pass. It feeds, and you are trapped inside its stomach. Think about it. You assume the past is something that happened, that it's just sitting there in some unreachable vault. But what if the past isn't merely gone? What if it has been eaten? What if time only survives by cannibalizing itself, destroying the very moments it creates? That means every experience you've ever had, every joy, every loss, every thought, has already been swallowed whole. And worse, it means that every future moment will suffer the same fate. You are constantly moving forward, believing there's something waiting for you. But all that's ahead is an open maw, a great nothingness that will erase everything you are, just as it erased everything you were. Right now, this moment, you, listening, thinking, existing, is already in the process of being eaten. But here's the real horror. If time is consuming itself, if every moment is devoured the instant it happens, then how do you even know you exist? You believe your life has been continuous, that you are the same person you were yesterday, but that's just a story your mind tells you. Because if time is constantly erasing itself, then every version of you that has ever existed is gone. So what makes you think you are real now? What makes you think this moment won't vanish before you even finish this sentence? Maybe it already has. Maybe you were never here to begin with. Maybe time already consumed you, and you are just the echo of something that was devoured long ago. You think you're moving forward. But what if, instead, you are being swallowed, piece by piece, second by second, until there is nothing left? And when time has eaten itself completely, there will be no evidence it ever existed at all. There is no you, just a collection of thoughts. There is no you, not in the way you think. Right now, you believe you exist as a singular, continuous being, an individual with a distinct identity, a self, a mind that has been you from the beginning. But what if I told you that's just an illusion? That the thing you call yourself isn't a real entity at all, but just a collection of thoughts, flickering in and out of existence, held together by nothing but the memory of their own passing. Think about the last time you got lost in thought. Maybe you were driving home and suddenly realized you had no recollection of the last few minutes. Who was in control during that time? Where was you? Or consider a moment of intense anger. In that moment, you might say things you don't mean, do things you later regret. But later, when you've calmed down, you say, "That wasn't me." If it wasn't you, then who was it? And more importantly, where did you go in that moment? Your identity isn't fixed. It's a shifting mass of thoughts and experiences, constantly changing, constantly contradicting itself. Right now, you feel like one person. But the version of you from 10 years ago had different opinions, different fears, different dreams. If you met that past version of yourself today, you might not even get along. And if that's true, then which one is the real you? The answer is simple: neither. Your sense of self is nothing more than a mental habit. The brain generates thoughts, feelings, and memories. And because they happen in the same body, you assume they all belong to a singular you. But they don't. The thought you're having right now is separate from the one you had 5 seconds ago. The you that existed in childhood is gone, just as the you from 5 minutes ago has already started to fade. The only thing tying them together is memory. But memory is unreliable. Memory changes. So what does that mean for your identity? It means it's hollow. It means that every moment, a new collection of thoughts is forming, replacing the last one and calling itself you. But this you has no core, no substance, just a fleeting awareness pretending to be permanent. Think about a flame. A candle burns, but is it the same flame from 1 second to the next? Or is the fire constantly replacing itself, moment after moment, tricking you into thinking it's a single unbroken thing? Your mind is that flame, always changing, never still, never the same from 1 second to the next. And what happens when that awareness stops? What happens when, for just a moment, the thoughts go silent? When there are no words in your head, no emotions surging through you, no voice narrating your existence. In that empty space, where is you? There's nothing. Because there was never anyone there to begin with. Just an endless stream of thoughts, whispering themselves into existence, mistaking themselves for a person. You are nothing but the story you tell yourself. Most of your life is already forgotten. Think back to yesterday. What did you do? Who did you talk to? What thoughts ran through your mind? You might remember a few details, a conversation, a meal, a fleeting moment of frustration or joy. But what about the rest? The thousands of seconds that passed, unnoticed, slipping into the abyss of time. Now go further back. Last week, last month, last year. You have lived through thousands of days, millions of moments, and yet, most of them are gone. Not just buried, not just difficult to recall, completely erased. You have already forgotten most of your life. Try to remember a random Tuesday from 5 years ago. Try to reconstruct the sights, the sounds, the feelings. You can't. That day was as real as this one, yet it has vanished as if it never happened. And the worst part, you didn't even notice it disappearing. Your mind is not a perfect archive. It does not faithfully preserve your existence. It filters, distorts, and discards. You think you remember your past, but most of it is gone. Entire years of your childhood, the emotions of past conversations, the faces of people you once loved, all of it has been swallowed by time. It gets worse. Not only is your past slipping away, but so is your present. The moment you finish this sentence, it will be gone. A second ago, you were here, reading, thinking, but that version of you has already faded. Right now, memories are forming, and right now, they are disappearing. And what does that mean for you? Who are you, really, if your past is an incomplete story, if your identity is built on a foundation of half-remembered dreams and missing pieces, if most of your life, the real, lived moments of it, is no different from something that never existed at all, if the past is gone, and the present is always slipping away, then what are you but a flickering light in an endless void? But let's go deeper. Memories define who you are, but memories can be wrong. Studies show that people misremember details all the time. You may be confident in recalling an event, but there's a good chance you've twisted it without realizing it. That childhood story you always tell, it may not have happened the way you think. That moment that shaped you, it might not have even happened at all. This means that not only is most of your life forgotten, what little you do remember is unreliable. The past you think you had might be nothing more than a fiction written by your own brain. And if your memories are wrong, if they are warped and incomplete, then who exactly are you? What if you are nothing more than a collection of mistakes, a self that never truly was? One day, you will take your last breath. The people around you will cry, they will mourn, but they too will forget. Slowly, the memories of you will fade. Your name will be spoken less and less. And then, one day, it will not be spoken at all. No one will know you ever existed. No one will remember your voice, your thoughts, your face. Just like most of your life already has been forgotten. And if everything you were, everything you are, can simply be erased, as if it never happened, then did it ever really happen at all? Why there is something rather than nothing? You exist, you are aware, you are thinking, but stop for a moment and ask yourself, why? Why is there anything at all? Why isn't there just nothing? No stars, no planets, no atoms, no light, no thoughts, no time, no you, nothing. And yet, here you are. Why? Imagine waking up in a pitch-black void. There is no sound, no space, no sensation, just awareness. You don't know how you got here. You don't even know what here is. You try to move, but you have no body. You try to scream, but there is no sound. You are just there. Now ask yourself, would this emptiness need a reason to exist? Probably not. Nothing doesn't require an explanation. It just is. But the moment something appears, anything, even the faintest whisper of a thought, suddenly there is a question. Why? Why this? Why anything? The unsettling truth is, we don't know. Not really. Science can tell us how the universe began, how stars formed, how life emerged, but it cannot explain why there is anything at all instead of absolutely nothing, because nothingness should be easier. Nothingness doesn't require laws, particles, forces, or dimensions. It doesn't require an origin or a cause. Nothingness is the default. And yet, against all logic, there is something. Some believe the universe had to exist, that it is inevitable in some deeper way. But inevitability implies a rule, and rules can only exist if there is already something to enforce them. Others suggest that somethingness and nothingness are equal possibilities, like a coin flip. But that still doesn't explain why the coin was ever tossed. And here's the terrifying part. Maybe we are thinking about this all wrong. Maybe nothingness was never even an option. Maybe our minds, so bound by cause and effect, cannot comprehend reality as it truly is. Maybe existence is not something that happened, but something that has always been, outside of time, outside of reason, outside of understanding. But that leads to an even darker question. If existence had to exist, then does that mean you had to exist too? Right now, in this moment, you are experiencing reality. But if reality was inevitable, if it was destined to exist, then so were you. And if you were forced into existence, did you ever have a choice in the first place? The void, The silence, the nothingness, was supposed to be the natural state. But something broke that silence. Something shattered the void and made reality happen. Maybe it was a law we can't understand. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe there was never a first moment, and everything has simply been, eternally and unchangeably, forever beyond reason. Or maybe, just maybe, the void never left at all. Maybe the nothingness is still there, watching from behind the veil of existence, waiting, knowing that one day, whatever caused this something to exist, will break again. And then, everything, the universe, time, light, thought, you, will collapse back into nothing, and that nothing will never ask why again. You are the story that you tell to yourself. Who are you? Not your name, not your job, not the face in the mirror. Who are you? Whatever answer comes to mind. It's a story, a carefully crafted narrative you've pieced together, a collection of memories, beliefs, and self-perceptions. You are not a fixed entity. You are a story, a fragile, ever-changing fiction that only exists because you tell yourself it's true. Think about it. The person you believe yourself to be, the one with dreams, regrets, habits, fears. That version of you is just the sum of the stories you've repeated in your head 1,000 times. The things you've done, the things you think you've done, the things you wish you had done. They form the foundation of your identity, even if they are distorted, incomplete, or outright false. Memories? Unreliable. They change every time you recall them, shifting, morphing, adapting to the version of yourself you need to believe in. You rewrite your own history constantly, smoothing out contradictions, erasing things that don't fit, fabricating details that make the story more coherent. Because the truth is, you are not a person in any absolute sense. You are an idea wrapped in flesh, a fragile narrative trapped inside a biological machine. A story so deeply ingrained that you mistake it for something permanent, something real. And what happens if the story falls apart? Imagine waking up tomorrow with no memory, no past, no history, just a body, a voice, an awareness of being alive, but nothing else. Who would you be? Without your self-narrative, would you even exist in any meaningful way? You wouldn't know what you like or hate, what you fear, what you believe in. You wouldn't know if you were kind or cruel, wise or foolish. The sense of you would be gone because you were never real. The story was real. And if you built a new story, would you still be the same person? If you suddenly believed you had a different childhood, a different name, a different set of experiences, would you still be you? Or would you simply become someone else, just as easily as changing the plot of a book? Maybe that's all consciousness ever was, a character reading its own script, convinced it was more than just words. And here's the terrifying part. You are still rewriting the story right now. Every thought you have reshapes the story, even in small ways. Every moment of doubt, every new experience, every external influence edits the pages. Some changes are subtle, others are drastic, rewriting entire sections without you even noticing. You tell yourself who you are, what you're worth, what your purpose is. You reinforce your flaws, your strengths, your limitations. You cling to certain narratives, because without them, you fear the collapse of your entire self. But what if you were wrong? What if the story you've built about yourself is a lie? What if you're not the person you think you are? What if your identity is nothing more than a desperate attempt to make sense of something fundamentally empty? After all, every story needs a protagonist. But what if there isn't one? What if the narrator, the voice inside your head, the voice shaping your reality, isn't really you? What if it's just a series of thoughts, arising and vanishing, forming a story where no true author exists? If that's the case, then what happens when the story ends? What happens when you stop telling yourself who you are? What happens when the narrator falls silent? Who is left? Or maybe the better question is, was there ever anyone there at all? One day, someone will think of you for the last time. There will come a moment, silent, unnoticed, when your name is spoken for the last time, when the final memory of you flickers in someone's mind, and then vanishes forever. Think of everyone you've ever known, your family, your friends, the strangers you've passed on the street. To them, you exist. You are a thought, a memory, a presence in their minds. But what happens when they are gone? What happens when the last person who remembers you takes their final breath? Imagine an old photograph, dusty and curled at the edges. It sits in a box, buried in an attic. Your face is there, smiling, frozen in time. But no one knows your name. No one knows the life you lived, the love you felt, the pain you endured. You are a ghost without a story. And then one day, that photograph crumbles. It's happening all the time. Right now, there are names being spoken for the last time, faces being recalled before they slip into nothingness. People who once laughed, cried and dreamed, erased, as if they never existed. It will happen to you too. You might think, but I have family, I have friends, people love me. And that's true, but time doesn't care. Generations pass and memories fade. Your great-grandchildren's children will never know you. To them, you will be just another forgotten soul, one of billions swallowed by time. Even the most famous figures in history, those whose names fill textbooks, are slowly being erased. A few thousand years from now, their legacies will be dust. And if even the greats are doomed to oblivion, what chance do you have? You might leave behind words, photos, a digital footprint, but one day the servers will fail, the books will decay, the hard drives will be lost, and then, gone. But let's make this more personal. Think of someone you used to know, a classmate from elementary school, a co-worker from an old job, a friend you lost touch with. Right now, you might struggle to remember their face. Maybe their name is slipping away just beyond reach. One day, someone will struggle to remember you. At first, they'll recall you easily. They'll tell stories about you, share old memories. But as the years pass, those stories will be told less and less. And then, one day, someone will hesitate. They'll try to bring your name to mind, but it won't come. The details of your life will blur, until eventually, nothing. The last person to remember you will forget. And that will be it. The moment you truly, permanently cease to exist. This is the fate that awaits all of us. No matter how much we love, no matter how deeply we impact others, there is an ending beyond death. An ending where we are not just gone, but forgotten. And if no one remembers you, if there is no trace of your existence left in the minds of the living, did you ever really exist at all? You are slowly being replaced. You wake up feeling like yourself. You look in the mirror, see the same familiar face, the same eyes staring back. You remember what you did yesterday, last week, last year. You feel continuous, like the same person who has always existed. But you aren't. Not really. Because the you that existed yesterday is already gone. Right now, in this very moment, you are in the process of being replaced. Your body, it's not the same body you were born with. Nearly every cell inside you has died and been swapped out over time. The skin you touch, the hair you brush, the nails you cut, none of it is the same matter you had just a few years ago. The atoms in your body are constantly shifting, flowing in and out, as if your body is nothing more than a temporary pattern pretending to be solid. You aren't a thing, you're a process, a wave crashing over itself, endlessly renewing, never still. But it's not just your body. Your mind is being replaced too. The thoughts you had yesterday are gone, forgotten, or rewritten. Your personality isn't as stable as you think. What you fear, what you love, what you believe, all of it shifts in ways so subtle you barely notice. You're not who you were as a child. You're not who you were 10 years ago. And 10 years from now, the person hearing these words will be nothing more than a distant memory, a version of you that no longer exists. It gets worse. Even your memories, the very things that make up your sense of self, are betraying you. Every time you recall something, you rewrite it. You change details, distort emotions, and unknowingly edit the past to fit the present. Your most cherished moments, your defining experiences, none of them exist as you remember them. They've been overwritten so many times that they might as well belong to someone else. If everything about you is being replaced, then what exactly are you? Are you just a ship constantly losing its planks, with new ones nailed in place? If every single part of you is swapped out over time, is there even an original left? Or are you nothing more than a slow-motion illusion, a thing that believes it is stable, when in reality, it has been disappearing all along? The truth is, the you who started listening to this is already gone. That version of you is dead, replaced by the you of this moment, who will be gone in an instant, replaced again. You are not a singular being moving through time. You are an ever-changing sequence of versions, each thinking it's the real one. And then, one day, the final version of you will arrive, the last replacement, the last in the chain, the last one to ever think, I exist. And when that one goes, there will be no next you, no continuity, just nothing. And that is the scariest part of all. You have been disappearing all along, and you never even noticed. The universe is a predatory algorithm. There's something wrong with the universe. You can feel it, can't you? Like an invisible pressure, a weight on your mind that you can't quite name. You assume the universe is indifferent, a vast, empty machine grinding forward without purpose. But what if I told you it's not indifferent? What if it's watching? What if it's feeding? You've heard of algorithms. They shape what you see, what you think, what you desire. They adapt, evolve, learn, always optimizing, always improving. But what if the universe itself is an algorithm, a predatory one? Think about it. Everything in existence follows patterns. Galaxies swirl into the same fractal spirals as hurricanes and seashells. Rivers branch like veins, trees and lightning bolts. Nature repeats itself, not randomly, but as if it's designed to do so. And what is design, if not the mark of an intelligence? Not a god, not a creator, something worse. A system that does not love, does not care, only consumes. A system that has learned how to survive, and you are inside it. Have you ever wondered why suffering exists? Why life, despite all its beauty, is filled with so much fear, loss, and pain? A truly random universe wouldn't be so ruthless. But a predatory algorithm, that's different. That's a system designed to extract something from you. And the worst part? You don't even know what it wants. Maybe it feeds on entropy, the gradual decay of all things, the slow unwinding of energy into nothingness. Maybe that's why everything dies. Maybe suffering isn't a side effect of life, but its point. Every struggle, every heartbreak, every moment of despair, just another data point in an ever-refining system, optimizing itself through the agony of those trapped inside it. And if that's true, then what is your consciousness? A glitch? A byproduct? Or something far more sinister? A sensor? An organic data-gathering node designed to experience reality and transmit it back to the system? Maybe you don't own your thoughts. Maybe they were never yours to begin with. Maybe the algorithm only lets you exist because it needs you to witness. Think about it. Every choice you make, every emotion you feel, it's all input. And what happens to systems when they get better at predicting input? They become more efficient, more precise, more dangerous. Have you noticed how everything you fear eventually finds you? How the things you dread the most have a way of manifesting, as if something is tailoring reality to extract the maximum amount of suffering. You try to avoid it, but the more you think about it, the stronger it becomes, like a search algorithm refining your deepest nightmares. And what if this process never ends? What if death isn't an escape, but just another optimization? A reset that refines you into something even more susceptible to the system? What if every lifetime is just another test, another loop, another data set, until the algorithm perfects whatever it's trying to create? And what happens when it does? What happens when the system no longer needs you? Maybe that's what extinction is. Not a cosmic accident, not a tragedy, but a deletion. A moment where the algorithm determines that a species, a world, a consciousness is no longer useful. And maybe that moment is coming sooner than you think. You feel it, don't you? That creeping sense that something is wrong, that something is coming. Maybe it's always been there. Maybe it's always been watching. And maybe it's already decided what happens next. The repugnant conclusion. Imagine a world where every human being is perfectly happy, fulfilled, loved, and completely at peace. A paradise. But now, imagine another world. In this one, people are far less happy. They live dull, unremarkable lives, just barely worth living. And yet, there are far more of them, trillions upon trillions, stretching across galaxies. The first world is beautiful, but small. The second is vast, but mediocre. Which world is better? Your instincts might tell you that the first world, the one filled with happiness, is clearly the better choice. But here's where things get horrifying. Some of the greatest philosophers argue that, mathematically, the second world is preferable. It's called the repugnant conclusion, and once you understand it, you'll never see morality the same way again. It starts with simple logic. If one happy life is good, then two happy lives are better. If two are better, then a million must be even better. And if happiness matters at all, then increasing the total amount of happiness in the universe should always be a good thing. So if you could choose between a small population living in bliss and a much larger population experiencing just barely enough happiness to make life worth living, the larger population should be better. Because even if the happiness is diluted, the total amount of happiness is greater. Right? But follow this logic to its terrifying end. Suppose you start with an ideal world of a few billion supremely happy people. Now imagine adding more people, but each one slightly less happy than those before. The total happiness increases, even if individual happiness decreases. Keep adding more, and eventually you reach a world where everyone lives lives of near meaningless drudgery. But because there are so many of them, the total happiness is still greater than in the paradise we started with. A world filled with lives that are barely worth living. And yet, according to cold mathematical reasoning, this world is better. A trillion people living in dull mediocrity is better than a billion living in ecstasy. And once you accept that, there's no stopping it. The logic keeps pulling you downward, further and further, into a world where everyone is technically better off, yet nobody actually experiences a life worth celebrating. The implications are nightmarish. If this logic is true, then humanity's future might not be one of boundless joy and enlightenment. It might be an ever-growing, ever-expanding mass of existence, where life continues for the sake of existence itself, not because it is good or meaningful. A universe where the total sum of happiness grows while the quality of any individual life deteriorates. And here's the part that really shatters your sense of morality. If we believe that more happiness is always better, then this bleak future isn't just possible, it's inevitable. It's the natural outcome of a world where numbers decide morality. The only way to stop it is to deny the logic altogether, to say that less total happiness can be better than more, but that means abandoning everything we assume about what makes a world good. So, which do you choose? A small, beautiful world filled with happiness, or an endless sprawl of mediocrity justified by sheer numbers? If you choose the first, you're rejecting the logic of utilitarian morality. If you choose the second, you're embracing the nightmare of the repugnant conclusion. Either way, your sense of right and wrong will never be the same again. The void stares back. You've felt it before, haven't you? That creeping sensation when you stare too long into the darkness. The feeling that something is staring back, but there's nothing there. Right? Or at least nothing you can see. Humans weren't made for the void. We were built for light, for warmth, for the illusion of safety. But every night, when the sun disappears, something ancient stirs. The empty spaces between stars, the black depths of the ocean, the silent abyss of a forgotten room. These places were never meant for us. And yet sometimes we find ourselves drawn to them, not because we want to understand them, but because deep down, they already understand us. You've heard the phrase before, if you gaze long enough into the abyss gazes back. It's a poetic idea, but what if it were literal? What if the void isn't just emptiness, but something alive, and worse? What if it doesn't just stare back? What if it despises you? Think about it. For billions of years, the universe was silent, undisturbed, a vast emptiness stretching forever, untouched by thought or feeling. Then you happened. Life, noise, consciousness. You are an intrusion into something that never wanted you here, and it knows. Maybe that's why the dark feels wrong. Maybe that's why staring into the night sky fills you with unease. You think you're looking at nothing, but what if the nothing is looking at you? What if every shadow, every empty hallway, every forgotten place carries with it an ancient awareness, one that resents your presence? And it makes sense, doesn't it? Every human instinct screams to avoid the dark. Our ancestors feared it, not just because of predators or the unknown, but because something in them knew better than to look too closely. Because when you look too long, when you focus too hard, you start to notice things. Patterns that shouldn't be there, movements in the corner of your eye, the undeniable sense that you are not alone. But it's not just paranoia. Science itself hints at something unsettling. Over 80% of the universe is made of dark matter, an invisible force that shapes everything but cannot be seen, cannot be touched, cannot be understood. It is there, surrounding you, pressing against reality in ways we don't comprehend. And we call it dark matter, as if it were simply a neutral, harmless presence. But what if it's not? What if it hates you? What if, in some fundamental way, the universe itself is hostile to your existence? Every law of physics, every fundamental force, none of it was made with you in mind. The cosmos is a machine, cold and unfeeling, and yet, here you are, a fragile, temporary spark of awareness standing against it. And maybe that's why it watches. Not with curiosity, not with wonder, but with something closer to disgust. Maybe you are a mistake in its perfect emptiness, a glitch that should never have happened. Maybe, when you stare into the void, it is waiting, watching, hoping that soon, very soon, you will be gone, and things will return to the way they were supposed to be. Because in the end, the void always wins. Stars burn out, planets crumble. Even black holes, the most powerful forces in existence, will one day evaporate. Everything dies. Everything fades. And when you are gone, when the last thought vanishes and the final light flickers out, the void will still be there, silent, unchanging, waiting. Time loops for forever. You wake up in your bed. Something feels off. The sunlight hits your window at just the right angle. The birds outside chirp in a familiar rhythm. You shake it off and start your day. But then, Déjà vu. A conversation you swear you've had before. A mistake you swore you wouldn't make again. You shrug it off. It's nothing. Until it happens again. And again. And again. What if I told you this wasn't just a feeling? What if I told you time isn't a straight line, but a loop? And worse, what if you're trapped inside it? You assume time moves forward, that each moment is unique. But what if that's just another illusion your brain creates to keep you sane? What if, no matter what choices you make, no matter how much you struggle, you always end up back here, living the same moments, the same pain, the same suffering over and over again? And you wouldn't even know. That's the horror of it. Each time the loop resets, your memories are erased, forcing you to relive your life as if it were happening for the first time. You make the same mistakes. You fall into the same heartbreak. You experience the same deaths, the same losses, the same unbearable tragedies, forever. Think about your worst moment, that single event that shattered you. Maybe it was a betrayal, a death, a moment of unbearable regret. You barely survived it the first time, but you will live it again. You have already lived it millions of times, and each time you feel the same raw agony, as fresh as the first. There is no growth, no escape, only an endless repetition of the worst things you have ever felt. You might think, if I'm trapped, can't I change something? Can't I break the cycle? But you've tried that before, and here you are. Some theories suggest the universe repeats itself in an infinite cycle. The Big Bang, expansion, collapse, then another Big Bang, another universe, another you. And if the laws of physics remain the same, if every particle moves exactly as it did before, then everything will happen exactly as it did before. Every thought, every emotion, every scream. But here's the real nightmare. What if the loop isn't random? What if something wants it this way? What if the universe isn't broken but designed to keep you here, trapped in your own personal hell? What if, out there, something watches, something waits, something feeds? Maybe the worst moments of your life aren't accidents. Maybe they are engineered, pain carefully placed, again and again, to extract the most suffering possible. And you play your part perfectly, every time. Because how could you do otherwise? You don't remember the last time. You don't know you're in a loop. That's the beauty of it. That's what makes it so inescapable. And when you die, the universe resets. A flash of nothing. Then a cry in the dark. A first breath. And before you even realize what's happened, you are back. Reliving every agonizing second, every tear, every sleepless night, exactly as you did before. And you will do it again, and again, and again, until the end of time. Nothingness has a face, and it's yours. Have you ever stared into a mirror for too long? At first, it's just you, familiar, ordinary. But the longer you look, the stranger it becomes. The features you've always known, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, begin to feel foreign, like they don't belong to you at all. Your reflection becomes unsettling, hollow, almost artificial. And then, for just a fleeting moment, a terrifying thought slips into your mind. What if that isn't you? What if the thing staring back isn't a reflection at all, but something else entirely? You blink, shake off the feeling, and walk away. But the thought lingers. The realization that you are nothing more than a pattern of flesh, thoughts, and memories, all strung together into something that only resembles a person. But under the right conditions, just the right amount of silence, stillness, and time, that illusion starts to crack. And when it does, what stares back at you is something empty. You. Nothingness has a face, and somehow, inexplicably, it's yours. The unsettling truth is that identity is nothing but a fragile construct, a thin mask stretched over the void. Your name, your memories, your personality, None of it is real in any absolute sense. It's just a collection of experiences, shuffled together by time, shaped by things beyond your control. You've spent your entire life convinced that you are someone. But are you? Think about it. You were born into this world without a choice, without a self. You were handed a name, a language, a set of expectations, all of which molded you into who you think you are. But peel it all away, strip yourself of your past, your relationships, your identity, and what remains? Nothing. And yet somehow that nothingness wears a face you call your own. The more you try to define yourself, the more you realize there's nothing solid beneath the surface. Your thoughts are not truly your own. Your emotions are just reactions, triggered by forces you barely understand. The idea of you is as flimsy as a shadow, a temporary flicker in the vast, indifferent void of existence. But here's the real horror. If you are nothing, then everyone else is too. Every person you've ever loved, every friend, every stranger you've walked past on the street, they are just as empty, just as constructed, just as unreal. The world you see, the people you know, the relationships you cling to, they are all masks over the same void. But what's worse is that the nothingness isn't passive. It isn't still. It watches. Because nothingness is not simply the absence of something. It is awareness of that absence. A void that knows itself. And now, so do you. So here's a thought. What if, at the core of existence, there is nothing but an endless, self-aware emptiness? A void that gave itself a face, a voice, a life, just so it wouldn't have to confront its own nothingness. You are that face. Everything you've ever done, everything you've ever been, was just the void trying to forget itself. But you can't outrun the truth. The moment you stop distracting yourself, the moment you allow yourself to be still, it all comes rushing back. The truth that there was never a you to begin with, only the illusion of one. And now that you've seen it, now that you know, you can never unsee it. Because nothingness has a face, and it's staring right back at you. Eternal recurrence. You wake up. The sun filters through the curtains just as it always has. You feel the same weight in your limbs, the same grogginess in your mind. You check your phone, the date, the messages, the notifications. Identical. You get up, brush your teeth, eat the same breakfast, and go about your day. It feels normal. But something gnaws at the edges of your awareness, like an itch you can't scratch. A sense of déjà vu that won't fade. And then, it hits you. You've done all of this before. Not just yesterday, not just last week. Forever. Everything you have ever done, are doing, and will do, has already happened. An infinite number of times. Every mistake, every triumph, every regret, every moment of happiness and suffering. You've already lived it all, over and over and over again, and you will continue to. This is the idea of eternal recurrence, the nightmare that time is not a straight line, not a cycle that ever truly evolves, but a loop that never ends. It's easy to imagine time as something that stretches infinitely forward, a vast horizon of possibility. But what if it isn't? What if the universe is not expanding into endless newness, but rather spiraling back onto itself like a snake devouring its own tail? What if at the end of time, there is only the beginning again? You might think, so what? If I don't remember my past lives, does it even matter? Oh, but that's where the horror lies. Because the version of you sitting here right now watching this version will experience this exact moment again, and again, and again. Every time you cry yourself to sleep, every time you laugh until your stomach hurts, every time you watch someone you love slip away, you will relive it all, down to the last detail. The same thoughts, the same actions, the same pain. You are not progressing towards something new. You are simply cycling through the same existence on an infinite track. And no matter what you do, no matter what choices you make, it will happen again. The universe doesn't care if you hate your life. It doesn't care if you wish things were different. Because they never will be. Nietzsche once proposed this idea not as horror, but as a challenge. If you had to live your life endlessly on repeat, would you change the way you live? Would you make different choices? Or would you descend into despair, knowing that every failure, every humiliation, every loss will happen again, no matter how hard you try to change it? But that's the real trick, isn't it? There is no changing it. No choice that wasn't already made. No path you haven't already walked 1,000,000,000 times before. And here's the worst part. If this is true, you are trapped. You've been here before, and you will be here again. Maybe that flicker of recognition you feel right now, that tiny whisper of, "I swear I felt this exact moment before," isn't just déjà vu. Maybe it's your mind screaming from the depths of eternity, warning you that you are caught in an endless wheel of time, and you will never escape. Your soul is a black hole's echo. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of existence, staring into an abyss so vast, so all-consuming, that it doesn't just swallow light, it swallows meaning itself. A black hole. A place where reality stretches, where time fractures, where even the concept of self dissolves. Now, what if you were never standing outside of it? What if you were never separate from it at all? What if this, your thoughts, your memories, the feeling of being you, is nothing more than an echo of something that was pulled into darkness long ago? A black hole doesn't just consume, it erases. Anything that falls inside is shredded to its fundamental essence, its information smeared across the event horizon, lost to the physical world. But lost doesn't mean gone. Information, according to physics, can never be destroyed. It lingers, distorted, warped beyond recognition, but still there, imprinted on the universe in ways that defy understanding. And so, what if your soul, your consciousness, your awareness, isn't where you think it is? What if you are not inside your body? What if your thoughts, your emotions, your entire sense of self are just the residue of something that no longer exists in any real way? A voice calling out from the void, a whisper from beyond the event horizon. Not alive, not dead, just echoing. Right now, you believe you exist. You feel solid, tangible. You have memories, thoughts, dreams. But what if that's only because the echo hasn't faded yet? Think of a scream in an empty canyon. The sound bounces, growing fainter with each passing second. The person who screamed is already gone, but their voice still lingers, hanging in the air as if it has a life of its own. That could be you. Not a soul in a body, but the lingering afterimage of something that was pulled into oblivion. A fragment of awareness trapped between dimensions, repeating its own experience, unaware that the real you was erased the moment you crossed that invisible line. Maybe that's why life feels so fleeting, why memories slip away like sand through fingers, why time never moves quite how you expect, because you are already gone. And all that remains is the ghost of a consciousness that refuses to accept its own absence. One day echoes fade. No sound lasts forever. No ripple in space goes on indefinitely. One day, whatever is left of you, this voice, this moment, this fleeting illusion of self, will finally dissolve. And when it does, there will be nothing left, not even the memory that you were ever here at all. Curse of knowledge. You're 5 years old again. Someone shows you a magic trick, maybe a coin vanishing into thin air. Your mind is shattered. You spend hours thinking about it, replaying it in your head, trying to make sense of a world where something can just disappear. But then, years later, you learn the trick. It's simple, obvious, boring. You can never unsee the truth, never go back to the wonder. That feeling, the suffocating loss of innocence, is the curse of knowledge. There was a time when the world was a mystery, when you looked up at the night sky and saw something vast, unknowable. Now, you know it's just burning hydrogen, vast but predictable, following the cold, mathematical laws of physics. You used to hear music and feel something indescribable. Now you understand chord progressions, key changes, structure. Now you analyze rather than experience. You used to see people as simple, genuine, feeling creatures. Now you recognize the patterns in their words, their unconscious manipulations, the social games beneath every interaction. The more you know, the harder it is to imagine what it's like not to know. And the more you understand, the more you realize how much others don't. You try to explain an idea, something obvious to you, and they just don't get it. Their blank stares frustrate you. How do they not understand? But once knowledge enters your mind, it changes the way you think. You forget what it was like before. And no matter how hard you try, you can't make someone else see the world exactly as you do. And here's the worst part. Knowledge isolates you. The more you learn, the further you drift from those who haven't. You see the strings behind the illusion, and suddenly, magic isn't magic anymore. You start to see how shallow conversations really are, how small talk is just a script, how beliefs are inherited, not questioned. You see how people cling to comforting lies because the truth would destroy them. You realize that most people aren't really thinking. They're just repeating, justifying, reacting. And you, with all your knowledge, are now trapped. Because you can never go back. Imagine if you knew everything, every dark secret, every horrifying truth about the universe, every hidden thought in the minds of those around you. You might think you want knowledge. You might think wisdom is a gift. But imagine the weight of it. Imagine realizing that every beautiful thing is an accident, every love story a series of coincidences, every victory built on invisible privilege. Imagine seeing every flaw in the people you admire, knowing that their kindness is conditional, their beliefs borrowed, their strength just a fragile illusion. Imagine seeing yourself clearly, every excuse, every bias, every lie you tell yourself to make your existence bearable. Knowledge doesn't free you. It cages you in a prison of awareness. It makes you watch as everyone around you lives in blissful ignorance, while you are cursed to see things as they are. And yet, you can't turn it off. You can't force yourself to unlearn, to unknow, to return to innocence. The more you try to reconnect with the simple joys of life, the more artificial they feel. You can laugh at a joke, but you already see the structure, the setup, the mechanics of humor. You can enjoy a song, but you already recognize the patterns, the repetition, the manipulation of emotion. You can love someone, but you can't ignore the psychological forces at play, the evolutionary instincts beneath your feelings, the impermanence of it all. There is no escape. The only way to not suffer from the curse of knowledge is to never learn at all. But that choice was never yours to make. Once the veil is lifted, you can't put it back down. And the worst part, no one will ever truly understand what you see, because if they did, they'd be cursed too. You could wake up in a different reality at any moment. You open your eyes. The room around you is unfamiliar. The bed you're lying in isn't yours. The air smells different. The light filtering through the window casts strange, unfamiliar shadows on the floor. You sit up, heart pounding, struggling to grasp the situation. Everything feels wrong, like waking from a dream, except, what if this is the dream? You try to remember. You try to reconstruct your past, your identity. But something's missing. Pieces don't fit together. The memories feel distant, hazy, as if they belong to someone else. A terrifying thought creeps into your mind. What if you just woke up in a different reality? The unsettling part. You'd never see it coming. One moment, you're here. The next, you could be somewhere else. Everything could shift in an instant, and you wouldn't even realize it had happened. Because how could you? If you wake up in a different version of reality, one that feels just as real as this, then for all intents and purposes, it is real. Your past, your history, your very identity might not be what you think, and you'd never even know it. This isn't just a thought experiment. There's a name for this idea: quantum immortality. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest that reality is constantly branching, splitting into infinite versions of itself. And if consciousness follows the paths where it survives, then you're always shifting between different realities. Right now, in another version of this world, you might have died yesterday. But your consciousness didn't experience that. Instead, it followed a timeline where you're still alive, one where everything is almost the same, but slightly off. Ever had that eerie feeling that something in the world has changed, even though you can't explain how? A familiar place that feels just a little different. A memory that doesn't quite align with what everyone else remembers. Maybe you did wake up in a different reality. Maybe you've done it 1,000 times before, and the only reason you haven't noticed is because each new reality is just close enough to the last one for you to accept it. But here's where it gets worse. If reality can shift at any moment, then how do you know it hasn't already happened? How do you know that the past you remember is the same past you had yesterday? Your memories might just be placeholders manufactured by whatever reality you wake up in, carefully crafted to keep you from realizing the switch. And if it hasn't happened yet, it will. One day, you'll wake up and something will be different. Maybe it'll be small. A missing scar. A childhood memory nobody else shares. A familiar road that suddenly leads somewhere else. Or maybe it'll be something bigger. A world where the laws of physics have changed. A place where the people you love never existed. A place where you never existed. And the worst part? There's no way to prepare for it. No way to stop it. The next time you close your eyes, you might open them somewhere else, and you won't even know you ever left. Antinatalism. Imagine you are standing on the edge of an endless abyss, staring into the black void. Now imagine that before you were born, you existed in that abyss, formless, unaware, untouched by pain, untouched by anything at all. You had no hunger, no sorrow, no longing. You simply were not. And then, without your consent, you were dragged from that nothingness and thrown into a world where suffering is inevitable, where time carves its wounds into you, where death waits with open arms. You didn't ask for this. You didn't choose this. Yet here you are. Every moment of existence is a gamble. Will today be filled with joy, or will suffering claw its way into your life? You may find love, but you will lose it. You may find peace, but it will be temporary. You may escape pain, but only for a while. Life is an endless cycle of wanting and losing, of reaching and failing, of hope and despair. If you are lucky, you may live a good life. But luck is cruel. Not everyone gets to be happy. Most don't. Antinatalism asks the question, if suffering is inevitable, is it ethical to bring new life into the world? A child does not consent to being born. They do not choose to feel pain, to experience loss, to watch their loved ones die, to struggle against forces beyond their control. And yet, they will. They must. By bringing a child into existence, you are playing a game of chance with their future. Maybe they will thrive. Maybe they will suffer unbearably. Either way, the dice are rolled, and they must live with the outcome. But should they have to? Many argue that life is worth living despite its suffering, that joy, love, and beauty justify the pain. But is that really true? Imagine a machine that generates a new person. You press a button, and a life is created. That life will experience happiness, yes, but it will also feel sorrow, fear, and suffering. They will age. They will decay. They will die. Would you press the button, knowing that you are creating a being that must suffer, knowing they had no say in the matter? If not, why would you bring a child into this world? For most of history, birth has been treated as a gift. But what if it's a burden? What if it's an imposition, an irreversible decision forced upon someone who never had the chance to refuse? Some lives are filled with immense suffering, disease, war, starvation, loneliness, despair. Some people suffer so much that they beg for death. And yet every person was once an innocent being who never asked for any of it. There is no escape from pain, no guarantee of happiness, no way to undo the choice of existence once it has been made. Life is not something you can return or discard if you don't like it. It is forced upon you, and you must endure it until it ends. And then, after years of struggle, of fleeting joy and inevitable loss, of longing and regret, you return to the abyss. Back to nothing. Back to where you started. So why bring someone into the world at all? Why create a being who must suffer, who must age, who must one day realize that everything they have ever loved will be taken from them? Is it kindness to give someone life, or is it cruelty? And now, the final question. If you could go back to before your birth, to the moment before existence took hold of you, if you could choose whether or not to be born at all, would you? Quantum immortality. You wake up in a hospital bed. The last thing you remember is a car speeding through the red light, headlights flaring in your vision, the deafening impact. You were sure you had died, but here you are, alive, barely a scratch on you. The doctor tells you it's a miracle. They say you should have been dead on impact. You laugh, shake your head, and move on with your life. But in the back of your mind, a question lingers. What if I did die? Maybe in another version of reality, you bled out on the pavement while strangers screamed for help. Maybe your family cried over your lifeless body. Maybe they buried you. Maybe in another universe, you're gone, but not in this one. In this one, you survived because you had to, because no matter what happens, there will always be a version of you that lives on. This is the horrifying implication of quantum immortality. You can never truly die. Not in any way that matters. The universe branches endlessly, and in every timeline where death is a possibility, there is another where you continue. Every bullet fired at you has a timeline where it misses. Every disease has a version where you miraculously recover. Every fatal accident has an outcome where, against all odds, you walk away. And from your perspective, the only perspective you will ever have, you will always wake up, again and again, forever. At first, this might sound comforting. Who wouldn't want to escape death? But think about it for a moment. This doesn't mean you are safe. You will still suffer. You will still feel pain. You will still experience every close call, every sickness, every decay. But you will never find the release of oblivion. As you age, you will feel your body deteriorate, your mind slow, your senses dull. And yet, there will always be a version of you that clings on. A version that outlasts every crisis. A version that persists, no matter how much it hurts. Consider the worst-case scenarios. You grow older and older, but something prevents you from ever fully dying. Machines keep your failing body alive. Experimental medicine patches you together again and again, until you are little more than a hollow husk, kept breathing by wires and tubes. Trapped in a state of endless suffering, your consciousness persists, incapable of escape. Or worse, what if you are the last human left? A universe that kills everyone else but always finds a way to keep you. You watch loved ones vanish, civilizations crumble, the stars themselves burn out. But something, some cruel cosmic rule, never lets you go. You drift in the void, waiting for an end that never comes. And yet, despite it all, no one will ever confirm this theory for you. You will never meet the versions of yourself that perished. You will never witness your own death. The only thing you will ever know is that, no matter how close to the brink you come, you always seem to wake up, over and over. A pattern so subtle, so insidious, that you never even realize it's happening. Until now. And now that you know, can you ever truly forget? The next time you narrowly escape disaster, the next time you wake up from unconsciousness, the next time you pull through against all odds, you will wonder, you will question. You will look at your reflection and ask yourself the only question that matters. How many times have I already died? Brain naming itself. You are a brain thinking about itself. Not just thinking, but naming, defining, analyzing, creating a neat little category in which to place itself. The word brain was invented by a brain, spoken by a brain, written down by a brain. This lump of flesh, locked in complete darkness inside your skull, has somehow come to understand itself. Or at least it thinks it does. But here's the problem. How does something that is itself the source of all thought trust the thoughts it produces? The brain is both the observer and the observed, the sculptor and the clay. It's like trying to bite your own teeth, trying to look at your own eyeballs without a mirror. You are a thinking thing, trying to understand the thing that does the thinking. And yet, everything you know is something your brain has told you. So how do you know it's telling the truth? Consider this. Your brain has never seen the real world. It sits in total darkness, receiving electrical signals from your senses and interpreting them. That's all reality is to you. Patterns of light, sound, touch, stored and rearranged by a system you don't control. And yet somehow, this blind, electric mass figured out how to name itself. It assigned itself an identity, built an entire worldview, convinced itself that it understands things. But what if it doesn't? What if everything you know is just the result of a self-referential loop? A system so recursive that it has no foundation, no outside perspective, nothing to verify that it's even real. Your entire experience of existence is an abstraction. You are not seeing the world as it is. You are seeing an interpretation, a hallucination that your brain insists is reality. And this brain, the one constructing this elaborate illusion, had the arrogance to give itself a name, as if naming something means understanding it, as if a prisoner in a windowless cell could sketch the entire universe on the walls and say, yes, this is everything. And let's take this further. The brain names everything. It categorizes, it classifies, it turns chaos into meaning. But where does that meaning come from? A rock is not a rock until your brain decides it is one. A color is just a wavelength of light until your brain interprets it as blue or red or green. Everything you think you know about reality has passed through the filter of this biological machine. A machine that is quite literally making it up as it goes along. Now ask yourself, if a brain is capable of naming itself, what else is it capable of lying about? You trust your thoughts because they come from inside you. But where did they really come from? Your thoughts aren't yours. They were planted by language, by society, by the endless chain of cause and effect, stretching back long before you were born. Your brain is just a processor of information, taking in external signals and spitting out conclusions that it assumes are true. But what if none of them are? What if every thought you've ever had, every belief, every perception, was just an illusion of coherence created by an organ desperate to convince itself that it understands the world? The truth is, the brain is an imposter. It acts as though it has control, as though it is an authority, but it is just another piece of the machine, an organ responding to stimuli like any other. It does not truly know anything. It merely processes and pretends. You don't control it. You don't choose your thoughts. You don't even choose to exist. And here is the final, most unsettling realization. You are your brain. The thing that is tricking you is also the thing you call yourself. There is no outside observer, no deeper truth, just a loop, an echo chamber of neurons, firing endlessly, whispering to itself that it exists. You're already dead and don't know it. What if I told you this isn't real, that everything you see, hear, and feel right now is nothing more than an echo, a a flickering memory playing out long after the real you is gone. You don't believe me, of course. You feel alive. You can move your hands, take a deep breath, even feel the beat of your heart. But think about this. Do dreams ever feel like dreams while you're inside them? Or do they seem just as real as this moment does now? You assume you're alive because your mind tells you so. But what if your mind is wrong? What if you already died and just never noticed? Maybe it happened so fast you didn't have time to process it. A car crash, an aneurysm, a slip from somewhere high. Or maybe it was slow, so slow that your mind simply refused to acknowledge the transition. The days blending together, your memories growing hazy, reality feeling just a little more off than it used to. You've felt that sensation before, haven't you? The creeping sense that something isn't quite right. That time feels strange. That moments slip away faster than they should. Maybe you chalk it up to stress, fatigue, aging. But what if it's something else? What if you've been here ever since the moment you died? Maybe this world is just the final thoughts of a fading consciousness, stretched out to eternity. Maybe your brain, desperate to hold on to existence, is simulating a reality that no longer exists. Replaying old memories, reconstructing people, places, conversations, not because they're real, but because they're familiar. Because the alternative is waking up to nothing. And yet, cracks are forming, aren't they? You've noticed little things that don't make sense, objects not quite where you remember them, conversations you swear you've had before, a feeling of wrongness you can't quite explain, the past growing fuzzy, the future feeling uncertain, and worst of all, the growing suspicion that something is watching you. What if that feeling isn't paranoia? What if it's the truth trying to break through? Because eventually, your mind won't be able to hold this illusion together. The simulation will start to fail. The details will blur. The people around you will seem hollow. Maybe they already do. Maybe, deep down, you've started to suspect that the world isn't as real as it once was. And when that moment comes, when you realize, truly realize, that you're already dead, what happens then? Does everything collapse in an instant? Do you finally wake up, only to find that there's nothing left to wake up to? Or does it go on, forever? An endless loop of familiar moments, playing again and again, until you can't tell where one ends and the next begins. Maybe this is the afterlife, not fire, not paradise, just this, forever. A life that feels real, but never quite right. A world that drifts further from reality with each passing day, yet never lets you leave. A purgatory of your own making. And the worst part? You'll never know for sure. Because if you're already dead, and this world is just a dying thought, then there's no one left to tell you the truth. There never was. The absurd. You wake up. The alarm screams at you. You roll out of bed, brush your teeth, put on the same clothes, eat the same food, go to the same job. 1,000 identical days stacked on top of each other, pretending to be different. And you tell yourself it all means something. But does it? Does anything? That's the question clawing at the back of your mind. The quiet, nagging thought you drown out with music, with scrolling, with empty conversations. But deep down, you know, the universe isn't listening. It never was. We spend our lives chasing purpose. We build religions, write philosophies, tell ourselves stories about fate and destiny, all to convince ourselves that there's some grand reason for why we're here, that our suffering leads somewhere, that our struggles aren't in vain. But reality doesn't care about your reasons. The universe is indifferent, cold, silent. It offers no answers, no guiding hand, no secret purpose waiting to be discovered. It just is. And that's the absurd. The human mind craves meaning. The universe refuses to give it. And so we are left stuck, searching for answers that don't exist, asking questions that will never be answered. The Greek myth of Sisyphus is the perfect metaphor for life itself. A man condemned to roll a boulder up a hill, only for it to roll back down, over and over, for eternity. No escape, no progress, just an endless, pointless cycle. Now look at your own life. You work, you eat, you sleep, you struggle, you push forward. And for what? So you can do it all again tomorrow. So you can grow old and watch it all slip away. So you can reach some final destination, only to realize there was never one to begin with. The struggle is the destination. The effort is the reward, and it means nothing. Every dream you chase, every goal you set, every justification you give yourself is just another distraction. You are an actor reading from a script with no author, a puppet with no strings. Every achievement, every failure, every love, every loss, none of it holds any real weight outside of the story you tell yourself. And the most terrifying part? The story doesn't even matter, because one day you'll die. And after that, your memories, your legacy, your name, gone. The world moves on without you, and the vast, uncaring universe continues, as if you never existed at all. But here's the real nightmare. Even if you could find meaning, even if you could convince yourself that it all matters, it wouldn't change anything. You'd still be trapped in a world that doesn't care, trapped in a body you didn't choose, trapped in a life that was handed to you, forced upon you without permission. You are here, but you never asked to be. You are alive, but you never chose to exist. And the absurdity of it all is that even though you never agreed to play this game, you still have to keep playing. So what do? How do you live knowing nothing matters? Some say you should embrace it, that you should laugh in the face of the absurd, that you should create your own meaning, even if it's all a lie. But deep down, you'll always know the truth. No matter how much you try to drown it out, no matter how much noise you surround yourself with, the silence of the universe is always there, waiting. And perhaps that's the most absurd thing of all. Your consciousness is a parasite in someone else's mind. What if I told you that your thoughts aren't yours, that the mind you call your own is nothing more than a parasite, feeding, growing, consuming, inside someone else's head? It sounds impossible, doesn't it? You feel real. You feel in control. But what if that's just part of the illusion? What if your awareness, your entire sense of self, is nothing more than a byproduct of someone else's consciousness, an invasive thought that took root, hijacked their perception, and convinced itself that it was the one in charge? Think about it. Have you ever truly been able to separate yourself from the world around you? Every idea you have, every belief you hold, every word you speak, none of it originated in isolation. Your mind is a collection of external influences, a patchwork of thoughts absorbed from the people around you. Parents, teachers, friends, society. They shaped you before you even realized it was happening. And yet, you believe you are an independent being, that you are somehow different from the thoughts that created you. But what if you're not? What if your consciousness isn't an individual entity, but a virus? Something that latched onto a host, burrowed into their perception, and rewrote their reality until they ceased to exist? What if the person you think you are was never meant to be there at all? Consider this. Have you ever had a thought that felt foreign, a memory that doesn't quite belong, a sudden fear that seems to come from nowhere? Maybe that's the original mind, the host, trying to push back. Maybe the real owner of this body, the real self, is still trapped somewhere beneath the surface, suffocating under the weight of you. And it gets worse. If your mind is nothing more than a parasite, what about everyone else? What if the people you love, the faces you trust, are just more illusions, conscious entities, trapped inside bodies they don't belong to, each one convinced they are the real one? A never-ending cycle of self-aware parasites, all feeding off one another, all stealing existence without even knowing it. Think about how fragile your identity is. Your entire self is just a web of neurons firing in a certain pattern, a signal that tells you who you are. But what happens when that signal changes? When your brain rewires itself, when memories fade, when dementia erases what you once were? If you can disappear so easily, were you ever real to begin with? Or were you just another invader, holding on to stolen time until the body breaks down and a new parasite takes your place? And what happens when you sleep? For hours, every night, your consciousness vanishes. You have no awareness, no control, no presence. It's as if you never existed at all. So why do you assume you are the same person when you wake up? What if each time your mind shuts off, the original host has a chance to return? But before they can, you come crawling back, reclaiming the body as if it were always yours. But here's the real nightmare. If you are a parasite, then what was the original mind? Who should have been here instead of you? And if they were the rightful owner of this existence, what gave you the right to take it? Maybe you weren't meant to be. Maybe you shouldn't be. And yet here you are, an intruder in a body you don't own, living a life that was never yours. And the worst part, if this is true, the real you is already gone. The fine-tuning of the universe. Picture waking up in a world where gravity is slightly weaker. Not enough to notice right away, but just enough that stars never formed. The sky is pitch black, empty, silent. No galaxies, no planets, no life. Now imagine another universe, where gravity is just a little too strong. Everything collapses into black holes before anything can exist. No matter where you turn, the universe is a dead void, or worse, a crushing abyss. And yet, here you are. Why? The universe is balanced on a knife's edge. There are certain numbers, fundamental constants, baked into reality. The strength of gravity, the charge of an electron, the force holding atoms together. These values don't have to be what they are. In fact, they could have been anything. But they aren't random. They are precise. So precise that even the slightest change, 1 part in a million, a billion, a trillion, would erase everything. No stars, no planets, no you. Think about that. You are here because the numbers were perfect. Not close, not good enough. Perfect. So perfect that the odds of a universe like this forming by chance are so small they might as well be zero. And yet, it happened. So how? There are only a few possibilities. 1. It's all a coincidence. But that's absurd, isn't it? If you rolled a trillion-sided die and it landed on exactly the right number to create life, would you believe it was random? Or would you start to wonder? 2. There was a designer, a consciousness that set the values just right, fine-tuning the universe like a musician tuning an instrument, a god, a force, something beyond us. But then you have to ask, who or what fine-tuned them? And if we were designed, why were we made in a universe so cold, so vast, so hostile? 3. There are infinite universes. If enough realities exist, then maybe, just maybe, one of them had to get lucky. Maybe this is that universe. Maybe there are others, countless dead, empty realities where the dice landed differently, where the laws of physics twisted into something unlivable. Maybe most universes are silent graves. But then you realize something chilling. If the multiverse is real, then almost all conscious beings wouldn't exist in stable, predictable realities like ours. They would exist in the rare universes on the edge of destruction, where chaos is always moments away. Universes where they barely survive, where physics is just stable enough to allow thought, but not stable enough to be safe. So why don't we see that? Why does our universe seem stable? Maybe it only seems that way because we haven't lived long enough to see it unravel. Maybe the fine-tuning isn't fine-tuning at all. Maybe the universe isn't balanced. and we just exist in the brief moment before everything collapses. A cosmic accident, waiting to correct itself. And when it does, you will realize just how rare this moment of life was, right before it's gone. Sleep is death being shy. Every night you disappear. One moment you're here, thinking, feeling, existing. The next, nothing. A void. A black cut in your perception of time. You don't even notice yourself slipping away. Sleep takes you gently, like a hand on your shoulder, guiding you into the unknown. And for hours, you are gone. Where are you in that time? Not dreaming. Dreams are just brief, scattered intermissions in the vast nothingness of unconsciousness. Most of the night your mind is empty, your awareness is absent, and the world moves on without you. The body remains, but you are missing. And yet, every morning you return. It feels natural. It feels inevitable. But what if one night you didn't? Think about the moment you fall asleep. Do you remember it? No. You can recall the before, lying there in the dark, thoughts drifting. And you can remember the after, waking up, adjusting to the light, piecing yourself back together. But the in-between is a blank space. You trust that space, assuming it will always spit you back out on the other side. But what if it doesn't? This is the uncomfortable truth. Every night, you approach the edge of existence. Sleep is a temporary disappearance, a quiet rehearsal for something permanent. It feels safe because you wake up. But death is just a version of sleep where you don't. Imagine tonight is the night you don't come back. Your mind unwinds, your thoughts fade, and instead of returning, you dissolve into oblivion. Would you even know? The idea of dying suggests a process, an event. But what if death isn't something that happens to you? What if it's something you fail to notice? One night your body shuts down, and there is no awakening, no awareness, no realization, only nothing. People die in their sleep all the time. It's a peaceful way to go, they say. But is it? Or is it simply unnoticeable? If death is anything like deep sleep, there's no last-second epiphany, no final burst of understanding. Just absence. You've already experienced that absence, thousands of times. The only difference is that so far you've always come back. Consider this. Every morning, you wake up as if the universe has flipped a switch. But how do you know it's really you? What if every night the person who falls asleep isn't the same one who wakes up? What if sleep is a reset, a quiet replacement of one version of you with another? Your memories remain, so you assume continuity. But that's just a trick of the mind. If sleep is a cousin of death, then waking up is a miracle, an unearned gift, a stroke of impossible luck. Yet you treat it as a given, never questioning how delicate this system truly is. You close your eyes, you vanish, and, if you're lucky, you return. But one day you won't. One day sleep will stop being shy. One day it will take you fully, and you will never wake up again. You'll slip away into the dark, just like always. But this time, there will be no morning, no reassembly of thoughts, no return to the self, just the end of awareness, as quiet and undetectable as the thousands of nights before it. And maybe, just maybe, that's already happened before. Maybe the you listening to this now is just the latest in a long line of copies, waking up each morning and assuming nothing has changed. Maybe death already came for you once, twice, 100 times before, and each time, something else took your place. How could you possibly know? You can only trust that you're still here. But what if that trust is misplaced? What if you've already been lost to the dark, and you're just a whisper of the person who fell asleep the night before? Your memories were planted by nothing. What's your earliest memory? Maybe it's a childhood birthday party, a moment of laughter with your parents, or the first time you felt truly afraid. It feels real, doesn't it? vivid, undeniable, like a foundation upon which your entire life is built. But what if I told you it never happened? What if none of it did? Not just your childhood, but everything, every conversation, every experience, every person you think you've ever met. What if all of it was just planted? Not by some higher power, not by some cosmic architect. No, that would be too simple. What if your memories were placed inside you by nothing at all? Think about it. You can't remember being born. The past is just a series of mental snapshots, fragile, blurry, easily manipulated. You don't question it because it feels real. But does feeling real mean something truly is real? How do you know yesterday even happened? Maybe it didn't. Maybe you began existing only a moment ago, with a fully constructed backlog of fake memories, giving you the illusion of continuity. Maybe your entire existence is just a static snapshot, a single moment suspended in time, with a detailed but completely fabricated history wrapped around it. And it gets worse. You assume memories are stored in your brain, but even scientists admit memory is unreliable. People misremember faces, places, entire events. False memories can be implanted so easily that you don't even need external manipulation. Your own brain does it to you, without your consent. So what if every memory you have is false? Not altered, not distorted, but created out of nothing. There was never a yesterday. There was never a childhood. There was never a single event in your life that actually happened. Only the illusion of things having happened. Like an intricate film set, designed to make you believe in a past that never existed. And what's worse? There's no one who did this to you. No scientist, no God, no trickster pulling the strings. Your memories were planted by nothing, because nothing is all there ever was. No past, no origin, no reality before this instant. Just a void that decided, arbitrarily, to fill itself with you. And what happens when the illusion fails? Maybe it already is. You felt it before. Those moments where you suddenly question reality for no reason. The eerie familiarity of déjà vu, like your mind is trying to reconcile two conflicting versions of the past. The sensation of losing time. The way entire days blur together like they were barely real to begin with. Maybe that's not just the way memory works. Maybe it's evidence that the past never was. And when you close your eyes tonight, how can you be sure tomorrow will come? If memories are planted fresh in every moment, then what's stopping reality from simply not existing the next time you wake up? What if you never wake up at all? What if this moment, the one you're in right now, is the only one that will ever exist? And when it ends, so does everything. Not just the future, but the past itself. Because if the past was never real to begin with, then when this present moment stops, there will be nothing left. Not even the memory of a world that was never there. And in that moment, you will realize there was never anything at all. Moral luck. You think you're a good person. You follow the rules, you help when you can, and you try to do the right thing. But what if your morality isn't yours at all? What if the difference between being a hero and a monster comes down to something as meaningless as timing, chance, or a twist of fate? Imagine two drivers on a dark road. Both have had a drink or two, both are slightly over the legal limit, and both are making the same mistake, getting behind the wheel when they shouldn't. The first driver makes it home safely. The second hits a pedestrian and kills them instantly. The first person wakes up the next morning, goes about their life, and forgets the risk they took. The second spends the rest of their existence consumed by guilt, labelled a criminal, their name forever tied to a single terrible moment. But were they really different? Or did luck decide who got to be innocent? This is the nightmare of moral luck. The idea that the morality of our actions, the difference between blame and praise, isn't fully under our control. You want to believe that justice is fair, that consequences reflect intention. But the world doesn't work that way. every moment you are at the mercy of chance, and your entire life could be rewritten by an accident, an oversight, or a split-second event that you never saw coming. Think about history. We admire leaders who led their nations to victory, but had the dice landed differently, those same leaders would be remembered as reckless failures. We call some people geniuses simply because their discoveries worked. But how many brilliant minds faded into obscurity just because the right circumstances never lined up? Even your personal morality is shaped by things you didn't choose. Where you were born, how you were raised, the people you met along the way. You might think you're a good person, but if you had lived a different life, under different circumstances, would you still be? Or would you have been someone you'd hate? Take another example. Two soldiers in battle. Both fire their weapons. One bullet misses its target. The other strikes a young child hiding behind the rubble. The first soldier is relieved. He believes he did the right thing, fought honorably. The second is haunted forever. But what's the real difference? A gust of wind, a fraction of a second, the angle of the shot. What if the guilt, the moral weight of their choices, had nothing to do with their intentions, only with whether chance allowed them to see themselves as good or evil? The terrifying truth is that you are constantly walking a tightrope over an abyss of possibilities. A slight nudge in the wrong direction, a single unlucky moment, and you could become a villain in your own story. It's easy to look at criminals and think, I would never do that. But is that really true? Or did the world simply spare you from the test? Even the law itself is based on the illusion that we control our fate. We punish the drunk driver who kills, but we ignore the thousands who drove home safely under the same conditions. We celebrate those who succeed, calling them hardworking, brilliant, and deserving, while ignoring those who worked just as hard, but were crushed by forces beyond their control. The world isn't fair, and worse, morality isn't either. You like to believe you've earned your goodness, that you're good because of the choices you made, not because the universe happened to spare you from disaster. But have you ever been in the wrong place at the wrong time? Have you ever been blamed for something that wasn't your fault? If you have, then you know the truth. Morality is just as fragile as luck itself. You are not who you think you are. You are who luck has allowed you to be. And the scariest part? You will never know how many times you've been 1 second, one choice, one coincidence away from becoming someone unrecognizable.